And our first question for tonight goes, Dear Lumpur, what does it mean when teachers such as Ajahn Kalyano say the mind is being reborn right there? Thank you. And sorry, there's another part to this question. Does this explain why sometimes people are reborn together because of clinging?
Well, the first question is pointing to the fact that consciousness, our mind, is a conditioned thing. As long as we're affected by ignorance of the Four Noble Truths in the Dhamma and the truth, then the mind is conditioned by mental defilements arise when we see, hear, taste, smell, touch, or think. And so in brief, this is the cause of more birth, isn't it? You're born into every mental state that arises from moment to moment. So you're born into pleasure, you're born into pain, born into happiness, born into sadness, and so on. It's that quick. This is the birth of a new moment of consciousness, stimulated by what you've seen and how you interpret it, what you've heard, how you interpret it. If there's mindfulness present, we say mindfulness is the path to the deathless. So there's mindfulness and the reflective ability of the mind is active, there's wisdom, insight. That mental state that arises is just a moment of thought or a moment of consciousness arising and ceasing. But because of the ignorance, lack of mindfulness, lack of insight, we attach. So we become born into that thought. And this conditions more thought, more intentions to do things, go to places to get more pleasures or get away from what we don't like. Conditions a lot of action. So we keep getting born into different experiences. This is how we create our world, and this is what sustains us. What you might call bhava tanha, desire for becoming, over and over again through our life. So you see, say during a meditation, say you're getting bored, and you'll throw up maybe a fantasy about something you want to do, or a place you want to go, someone you want to see, or some action, some activity you want to do. So you become born into that. It stimulates enough and becomes like a little story in your mind. Or it could be something external. You see some nice food or smell some nice food, and you're immediately born into that. Something unpleasant that comes your way, some unpleasant, painful experience happens, you're born into that. This is going on all day long until we die. So obviously at the moment of death, the physical body stops working, but the mind doesn't. The mind is still being conditioned by defilements, and so we get rebirth into another life. But it's already happening right here, right now. This is why you can practice Buddhism. You don't have to wait until the end of your life. You can observe birth and death, or the arising and ceasing of mental states, intentions, the karma, and then results of karma at every moment through your day. When we're more mindful and reflective, we can do that, and then we'll have those moments when we lose our mindfulness, we slip back into the dullness of the mind, or just following habitual conditioning process of the mind. So we become born into the different moods and experiences we have. So when you're suffering, you're born into that state of suffering, because you're holding on to something with ignorance, lack of mindfulness, lack of understanding, so you may become angry or fearful or have some desire that's really afflicting you, you become born into that. And it can be just so fast, it's just moment to moment, isn't it? The more you practice, the more you notice how your moods can change very quickly. You just hear some bit of news and it can put you in a good mood or a bad mood in just 1 second. You hear a few words or read something, or a little bit of pain makes you think one way, feel one way. A bit of pleasure puts you in another way. Your birth and death, or the arising and ceasing of states of mind, is going on all the time. And that's birth and death. The second question, does this explain why sometimes people are reborn together? Well, first of all, people are not reborn together. You're born alone, aren't you? You come into the world out of your mum's womb alone, unless you come with twins. Even twins are born one after the other, not usually at the same time. But normally you're born alone, naked, come into the world naked, alone. And then you meet people, obviously, you meet your mum straight away, and usually your dad, and then siblings, and then gradually you form friendships and associations with other people. So Buddhists love to do this. They love to speculate. Oh, is this person my soulmate? Is this person, have I made karma with them before? Good karma, bad karma? Did this person used to be my husband, my wife, my child, my parent? So I'd be a bit careful of that. It can be fun, of course, but be careful of this speculation about past karma and past contacts with people, because if you really can't know, if you don't have jhana and the ability to recollect past lives and understand the connections with people in that way, then it's just speculation. So you may be feeding just your own desires again. So you meet someone you like, you say, oh, I hope this person is my karmic soulmate. Maybe that's just because you like them and you want to be with them. Or you meet someone who's really difficult to be with. Oh, this must be my enemy from past life. Well, that's just guessing, isn't it? It may actually be feeding a bit of delusion, so be careful with that. But people do form attachments in this life. You don't need to think so much about past life, future life. This life, you form attachments through love and hate. And so, you love people, and then after a while you tire of them, you get bored with them, so then you don't love them anymore. Love doesn't last very long. You have to be smarter than just following your moods. So like, when you marry someone, at first it's romantic love, but that doesn't last because you get used to them. They don't look so good after a while, you start noticing their faults. So then you have to move on to a deeper kind of love, more unconditional love, just appreciating the good qualities of this person. Maybe you've lived together, there's been sacrifices and they've helped you and you've helped them. Then your love goes to a different, more deeper level, maybe, ideally. But it doesn't always, does it? Sometimes the romantic love fades and you just get annoyed with them and you can't live with them anymore. So, be aware of that. Love and hate do tend to condition each other, support each other. And that's karma. And this karma will come back to us in this life and maybe in future lives as well. Partly it depends how intense it is, how strong it is. So if you intensely hate someone, that can become strong karma in the way you think. You always remember them with anger, with hatred. This may affect not only your thinking, but what you say, what you do. You may do things to harm that person. Well, that becomes stronger and stronger karma, doesn't it, over time? And same with love and attachment. You're attached to someone, you really like them. Well, that also can be a strong karma. This is when you meditate, you're noticing what's going on in your mind. You're noticing how attachments form. You're noticing how craving hardens into attachment. And you're learning how attachment leads to suffering. The people you love bring you suffering because you miss them and you want them and you don't want to be separate from them, and they don't always do what you want. And then the people you hate obviously bring you suffering because whenever you meet them or think of them, you're unhappy. This is something you can learn about as you meditate and start to let go of some of those attachments, and you feel more peaceful.
Sadhu Luang Por. There is another question which goes, Dear Ajahn, I just read your book and there were a few times when you encountered dangerous animals in the forest, such as tigers, bears and snakes. I'm wondering, what is the guideline from the monastery and the teacher when such a situation happens?
Learn your chanting. We just did.
Because it seems that every time you encountered, you would just stay calm and quiet rather than running away or doing something to stop the animal attacking. Were there many monks who got injured from animal attacks while practicing as a forest monk while in Thailand during your time? Thank you.
No, very few. Maybe that's a testament to the power of sila. You keep precepts, you don't try and harm animals, then you're not creating the causes and conditions for those animals to be afraid or harm you. Usually we say if an animal does harm somebody, it's because of past karma. So that is a neat excuse for it. Usually they say if a monk or a nun is in the forest and there's wild animals about and the wild animal does attack in some form, it's past karma, and it's also possibly because of poor sila. If the individual is not keeping the precepts and they're an ordained person, they have an obligation to keep their precepts. But if they're not, then it opens up the opportunity for negative karma to arise because they're not keeping the precepts. We say if you keep the precepts will look after you. So if you don't keep them, it's like you don't have your protection, your bodyguard there. So then bad things can happen. So a few years ago there was a monk attacked and killed by a tiger in Thailand. Nowadays there's very few tigers left, but there are still one or two, and this monk was attacked, and everyone was going, why did this happen? Why was this monk killed? Well, it turned out the monk had been drinking alcohol on the sly. So then all the senior monks go, yeah, maybe that's the reason. Didn't keep the precepts. If you're aggressive to animals, they'll fight you or they'll be afraid and they'll attack you. So probably most commonly you see that with snakes. I've seen a few people, when they encounter a snake, they will get angry or aggressive and they'll attack the snake before the snake attacks them. And you corner a snake and then the snake will attack you. Obviously it's not always that way. Sometimes people accidentally step on a snake, but I've accidentally stepped on a snake and still it didn't bite me because I wasn't doing it out of malice or cruelty. It was just an accident. And a lot of snakes, I think they work that out. If they watch you, they look at you and they sense you're not actually trying to hurt them and attack them, well then they don't really want to get involved with you. So it tends to go that way. If you're not following thoughts and intentions of aggression, then most animals will steer clear of you, or if they encounter you, they'll move away because they know you could potentially hurt them, so they don't really want to get involved with you. Unless it's very strong karma coming through from past life, which that does happen occasionally. We were chopping wood in Thailand once, and there was a monk getting angry with mosquitoes. There's a lot of mosquitoes in the jungle in Thailand. When you chop wood, you get sweaty, and the sweat attracts the mosquitoes all the more. So he got angry, and he said, So I think he was tired, chopping wood. Maybe he hadn't slept so much, chopping wood, and then he got angry with all these mosquitoes, and so he's holding an axe. So he started swiping around at the mosquitoes. And eventually a mosquito landed on his foot and started sucking blood from his foot. So the monk was just lost in his aversion to mosquitoes, so he chopped down to get the mosquito with an axe and put the axe into his foot. And everyone said instant karma and sent him off to the hospital. So, if you're someone like a monk, you have to keep precepts. You can't be aggressive. As soon as you're aggressive, you're on very shaky ground. Things go wrong quickly. So try not, if you're a monk or a precept lay person or anyone really, don't give in to your aggression. To be honest, I know I write about experiences with animals, but to be honest, human beings are worse than animals. Human beings, they carry weapons, they get angry, they do things more, they're more threatening, more troublesome to you. I haven't met that many human beings who've been aggressive as a monk, but occasionally you do. And again, you just learn to be non-aggressive, to be tolerant, patient with the situation, and usually that when you have self-control, you're not provoking them, then they generally, they don't attack you or do those sort of things. But in my life, say before I was a monk, I met too many aggressive human beings because I was brought up in London, South London. And as a teenager, I was attacked or observed other people being attacked far too many times. But still, the lessons applied. If you don't respond with aggression, people generally calm down quickly because you're not provoking them or making it worse. So that's always the best protection, is to be non-aggressive, even when a person or an animal is aggressive. Just don't meet aggression with aggression, and then the whole thing will deflate or subside quicker. That's my experience.
Sadhu Luang Por. Are there any other questions from anyone?
Looks like you're all questioned out, so maybe we'll leave it there tonight and wish you all well in your Dhamma practice. You can always save your questions for next time if any come up. We'll meet again next time.